Hello, everyone. Welcome. You are joining us. Go ahead and drop in the chat where you are from and what temperature it is in your neck of the woods today.
So welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Drizzle and we are here at the New River Gorge National Park and Preserve for Crossing America Season 4. So as Miss Zimmerman just asked, where are you from and what temperature is it there? We are in West Virginia at the Grandview Visitor Center at the New River Gorge National Park and Preserve. And it's around 40 degrees and the sun has just come out, which is absolutely amazing. So Miss Bell and Miss Zimmerman, where are we coming from today?
We have Wyoming coming in at sunny and 65, Charleston, South Carolina at 80 degrees. We have Elkins, West Virginia. I bet that's near you guys. 41 degrees. It's a little chilly there, huh? We have Columbia, Tennessee. We are sitting right around 68 degrees right now.
All right, well, that sounds great. I am curious, our Elkins, West Virginia school, can you drop in the chat window what teacher this is?
Looks like we have two from Elkins. One, let's see, Stacy Friddle at Third Ward Elementary, and then they're both at Third Ward Elementary.
Nice. Well, we're so glad to have you here today. This is going to be a wonderful experience for all of us. We are here with two amazing rangers, Ranger Lori and Ranger Jody, and we're just going to do a quick overview shot of where we are. You're seeing it right now. This is the New River behind us on a beautiful day. Now, when we're here in the summer, this is one of our favorite places to come for sunset or sunrises. We're not going to have that, but we do have trains getting ready to go by right now. We have hawks flying behind us. We have beautiful white skies and puffy clouds. So again, welcome to Crossing America Season 4. And I am going to use this microphone because it looks like mine is being a little wonky here today. So welcome. We're very thankful to the National Park Foundation for all of their support and our collaboration for Crossing America. So let's go ahead and get started. So Ranger Jody, behind us, we have sort of the masterpiece or the focal point of this park, what it's named after, the New River. Now, am I correct in saying that this is one of the oldest rivers in the world?
The New River is one of the oldest rivers on the continent. Well, now, when you're talking about that science, and it can be kind of hard to prove. Some people say 320 million years to 150 million years, but some say that it is not that old. But we've had scientists and geologists studying this river. This is part of the old ancient Taze River system here. The river starts in what's now North Carolina area, comes north through Virginia, here into West Virginia, and just north of the park is where the river is joined to become the Kanawha.
I love that. Well, we're going to look at a few photos here that sort of describe what is happening here. So if we can go to our deck for just a moment, and we're going to look at a few pictures that tell a story here at New River Gorge National Park. So we have a coal mining area here. We have an area in Thurman, and this is actually a railroad town or station. And then we have a little bit more talking about coal and coal mining. So these all tell a story. So we would like for you to tell us a story with a few props. So we're going to come back to Ranger Lori. And Ranger Lori, we're going to let you grab a few things behind you and tell a little story with us.
So when you think about the people of the Gorge here, people have been here for thousands of years. Some of the earliest prehistoric people, the Native Americans, lived and passed through this area, and all the way up to more modern tribes in the past 200 years. Some of the earliest settlers were in the late 1700s, but the big boom happened here with lots of people moving. Like when you heard that train down in the bottom of the gorge, when they finished the railroad line in 1873. Now, they knew that coal was here, but to be able to get to the resources of coal, you had to get that railroad line finished. And so when things were really booming here, There were freight trains every 15 minutes, over 125 towns in the gorge, mostly coal towns, trying to help get those resources to market. Now we've got some coal pieces here too. This is what people were using in the gorge. Think about what's happening in that late 1800s, early 1900s time. This is fueling steam trains, not the diesel trains we have today, but they were fueling steam trains. All the steam ships were using this as fuel, including transport across the oceans to other parts of the world. People were heating their homes with coal like this. They were also putting this in big ovens and processing it into a product called coke, and that's what they use in metals manufacturing. That's the fuel. So boy, that early 1900s time, this was the fuel of the nation. And so they were doing deep mining underground. The coal miners, this is what they call horizontal shaft mining that happened here in the gorge. And the layer of coal was about halfway up in the gorge. And so they would go straight in the side of the mountain to mine that coal out. But this was low coal, so those workers were having to work in low conditions like you see this. The men working in the mines were often crouched down. And so it was hard manual labor here in the gorge. In those early years, they didn't have electricity in the mines. And so a coal miner would have used something like this. This is called a sunshine light, or it's also called a lard lamp. They would put fuel here, so the miner would have they would light it almost like a candle or a lantern. And this is how they would light their way underground. But this was the fuel that was fueling the nation at the time. And so it was a lot of hard work, but boy, it lasted for a boom of industry that lasted for over 80 years here in the gorge.
Well, great talking about the history of this place and what makes it so special. Can we also talk about the importance of the ecosystem here? So, Ranger Lori, we've been working with you for a couple of years now, and in the summertime we get to go chase critters in the New River Gorge. We do a lot of work with hegel bites and dragonflies and salamanders. But one of the questions I have for you is, why is the ecosystem of the New River Gorge so vital to this area?
Absolutely. So this ecosystem provides for the health of not only the species that we find in the gorge, but also for the people around us. The air that we breathe and the shade that we have, just very vital for our communities. And they have a big impact on that in helping us preserve and protect this area for sure.
Well, we know that there's lots of plants and animals here, and right now we're, this early spring, so we don't see a lot of buds on the trees yet, but we know things are happening. So what types of plants and animals will we find here? And we're going to get Miss Lori to help us pass some stuff, Miss Jody to pass some things over. So Jody, if you can pass over a few things, what do you want first?
I think let's start big. We're going to go our biggest mammal that we have here in New River Gorge, and that is going to be our black bear. It is the state mammal of West Virginia. They are very elusive creatures, and they have that really pretty face and they are nice and fluffy, but we want to make sure we stay away from them. But the black bear is important. They like to eat lots of different insects and berries, so you might find them scavenging around the park, but they like to hide, and that's a good thing.
So this is the closest I've ever gotten to a black bear, and probably closest I'm going to get to a black bear. In fact, we talk about this rule of thumb, that if you hold your thumb up, and the animal is completely hidden behind that, then you're probably at a safe distance. But if he is peeking out at any point, you're too close,
Absolutely. Anytime they change their behavior, even if you're using that rule of thumb, if they're still reacting to you, you're going to want to back up to stay safe.
What else do we have?
The bigger they are, the farther you need to be away.
That's true. I'm going to hold on to him for a minute. What else we want to look at?
We have a beaver, which is also really important. I know we might be talking about some engineering, but these beaver, they're really important in the gorge because they're vital for our water ecosystem, our aquatic ecosystem. And they are nature's engineers. They like to build, and they create entire ecosystems for fish and for waterfowl and insects. So they're really cool to see. You might, if you see one, you might just see the tail slapping on the water because they're a little scared, and that's okay. So they have really nice fur. They were hunted for their fur because they have that nice raincoat and that nice underfluff that keeps them nice and warm.
Now, are these a keystone species for you, or a good indicator of what's happening
Absolutely. So beaver are going to be an indicator species for sure, because that means that the ecosystem is coming back and that beavers have returned. So that is an important species.
And very soft.
Very
so I want to
soft.
hold this one now too.
Okay,
So
you're
I've got
gonna
a
hold that.
bear,
Okay.
and I have a beaver, and then I think we have another animal to
We
talk
do.
about.
So I like to start big. We're going to go a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
I think our opossum is definitely underrated. They're North America's only marsupial, so they have a pouch, and they like to eat ticks. So I think it has a very important impact on people. We don't usually see that, right? That they're out at night, they're nocturnal, but they're really important because they help us eat the insects that we don't really like. So they're kind of our nature cleanup crew.
Well, and you have this saying that it's a face only the mother can love. So it is a little silly. But since these faces are so close to me right now,
yeah.
I'm going to do what Dr. Drizzle does very well, and I'm going to kiss a couple of
All
these.
right.
So this is my beaver, and I need a head. I don't want to.
You got the head.
I got the head
Yeah, right here.
right here. So I'm going to give him a good old kiss. And then I have the bear. And is that his face?
Yeah, you got his nose right
All
there.
right, I'm going to do him. Lovely. And then this one is not as cute,
No.
but I'm going to give him one.
Great.
So we're talking about these mammals, right, that are so important to New River Gorge National Park and Preserve, and in every national park that we are visiting. But we also have some really tiny things. In fact,
do.
I had sent you out yesterday with your niece and nephew to find me some salamanders, some live animals to kiss, and you didn't come through as good as I thought. I needed
sorry.
big ones,
I
but
know.
you know what? It's spring.
It is
right?
spring. So this is
And
the
so maybe they're just tiny right now. So can we talk about what you found? And
we
if
can.
it's still in
and
there.
you know, she came out of the net, so we might have to dig for a little bit, but
We
that's
can
okay.
dig. I'm going to give you
So,
these guys back.
In the spring, I think the coolest part of New River Gorge is when it starts to come alive with the buds on the trees, and our species are nice and small. They like to hide. Oh, there she is. Now I'm going to put this out there that we did collect her. I don't know if it's a female for sure. However, I'm going to go release her when we're done. So this is a red-backed salamander, and I found her under a rock. They like leaf litter. They like when there's some moisture. And she's really small.
And she's fairly fast.
She's very fast. She's warming up. She was nice and slow yesterday. She's warming up in the sun. But these species are really small. And what we're finding in our vernal pools right now is that the eggs are starting to be laid in the vernal pool, so we might find a lot of gelatinous balls. That's going to be our eggs. And we are going to find salamanders. So I'm going to put her back she's getting a little active. Okay, thank you. So right now is really an important season for a lot of our aquatic species because we have to protect our environment, not just our terrestrial or our land environment, but we have to protect our aquatic. So salamanders are really cool because we need to protect both. So if we have that healthy environment and we're protecting our water resources, we don't have a lot of trash in there or any pollution, and really good forested areas with shade. So the smaller the species, I like to think that the closer we look, the more we're going to find. And so it's just a really cool story here at New River Gorge, how many salamanders that we do have around our area. I can't tell you exactly, but maybe Ranger Jody can. But with our vernal pools and our springtime, everything is starting to awaken. So they're small, but they're mighty.
Yeah, we have over 30 species of salamanders here.
So you're running a close second to Great Smoky Mountains, which is the salamander capital of the world, with about 34. So you're getting very close there. What are some other types of salamanders we may find here?
Well, we'll have everything here from green salamanders to cave salamanders. Now, cave salamanders aren't necessarily always in caves, to spotted and marbled. Yeah, a lot of people love to see the red-spotted newt, especially, which as a baby phase, the bright orange ones, you'll see them on the ground in the forest when they're adults, and green, they'll be in the water more.
Okay, well, it looks like we have a question from our chat room. So what is our question?
We have so many questions. Let's start with this one. What is your favorite animal, and how many bugs are there?
All right, well, we'll ask both of them their favorite animal.
Take that one.
Ranger Lori?
I'm going to say dragonfly. I know it's not a more charismatic animal, but they have an awesome conservation story. They start off aquatic in the water, and then they grow up, and they're those really pretty insects we see flying around water. Again, it's a good indicator species that we have a healthy environment around us.
I love the iridescence that comes off of those when the sun shines through. What is your favorite?
I could tell you, if we could get down by the New River today, I honestly love seeing a river otter anytime I have the chance. And they'll be both in New River and as well as in some of the creeks that are here. We're right up above Glade Creek right now, and I've had a chance to see one there at a point.
And river otters are really cool because they have those sort of thin bodies that fall in the lake. In Voyagers, we had river otters, and we actually did some dances with those this year. There's bugs here.
Oh, yes, we definitely have many insects.
Let's talk about some of the insects that we have here.
Oh man, I mean that list could go on and on. Anything from
you just to 5.
Okay. Well, I mean like the variety of bees and butterflies and moths, and ants. The list can go on and on. But they're all such major contributors to this environment. How they help pollinate the plants, how they help feed other creatures. They're pretty amazing. So anything from honeybees to tiger swallowtail butterflies to tree crickets. Now, those aren't the classic crickets that you might see in your yard. Tree crickets are long and thin, when you look at them, and they're body type. Now, one of the things that's exciting about some of the science going on in the park, for several years we've been having a moth survey going on, and the survey people, they have found over 600 different species of moths here, and they've just barely scratched the surface. There is still so much to learn about not only the little teeny creatures, but the big creatures that live in the water, on the land, and all sorts of areas of the park.
And let's give a shout out to our favorite Mothman, Paul Shaw, who does a lot of work here in the park. In fact, the last 3 years, we have brought educators here in the summer, and we've actually got to help locate those new species. We have had on headlamps and have stayed up from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning chasing those beautiful moths that don't seem beautiful until you're really just right there with them, and then they become these gorgeous. The pink ones that we have seen here are pretty amazing.
Like the rosy maple.
The rosy maple, that was the one that we found. Since we're talking about research and things like that, we know that we have some community science projects happening here because again, you've allowed us to participate in those. So let's talk about some of the community science that's happening here.
So I think the coolest part when you come to a national park is that we know a lot, but we're still learning a lot too. And that is where our community science projects come in. So our big one that I know Daisha and our team in the park educators have assisted with is our Dragonfly Mercury project. And what we do is we take the dragonfly larva in that aquatic and that water stage, and we send them off for testing to see about our atmospheric mercury. Lots of big words, but what we look for is those dragonfly larvae. It indicates a healthy environment, and then it's an ongoing study. It's been going on for several years, going to continue on this year. Some of our other ones, especially right now that we are actively looking at, are our vernal pools. So that's a spring water source. That's where you might find the salamanders, you might find the frog eggs. So they're actively looking at those from year to year in the same locations. I think the coolest part about that is that the park works with our West Virginia State of Department of Environmental Protection. And so communities across the country have this opportunity, whether it's working with your state's Department of Natural Resources or your community parks. There's a lot of community science that's available. So while we do have this at New River Gorge, it's applicable in a lot of places, and even kids can get involved. So that's the really awesome part, is that kids have a way of finding things that are smaller that maybe adults don't notice. And so it's a really awesome opportunity for them.
So that leads me to think about this idea we talked about earlier, is that how important it is for our kids to get involved. This is not an adults only world.
Absolutely.
We need to really be working with our students, which is what Crossing America does. It gets kids involved. Now, I know, Ranger Jody, that you're very passionate about LNT, or Leave No Trace. So can you give us a quick synopsis of what Leave No Trace is and how our students and families can get involved in that?
Yeah, that's definitely something that every single one of us, from the littlest kid to the oldest grandparents coming with us, can practice Leave No Trace outdoor ethics. It's how we keep this environment in good shape. You know, and that's something you can do on every visit, from a picnic to a camp out to a mountain bike ride to a trip on the river too. And it's everything from planning ahead and preparing, know what the weather is going to be so you'll have the right kind of gear and stay warm. We were trying to prepare for that today. What do you do with your trash after your picnic? What if you can't find a trash can in that section of the park you're visiting? You may need to take that trash all the way home with you. Respecting the wildlife. We were talking about that earlier, about the bears, but it's not just the bears. Every animal, we're visiting their homes when we come to parks. And so respecting the wildlife that lives there, but not feeding them. They've got their own food to find, and they don't like our hot dogs and chicken leftovers and popcorn or potato chips, So let them find their own food, give them enough space. Do pay attention, like Lori was saying, to their body language. If they're acting tense or upset, give them more space. Use that thumbs up, to keep a distance from wildlife. But respecting the other people that are visiting here too is a good thing. Now, plants is one more thing that we really want to talk about. Make sure you're leaving the plants where you find them. They're part of that environment for the birds and the bees and the animals that live here that depend on those creatures. But like the Smokies, this is pretty exciting to how many plants that we have here. We're leaving them for the beauty of other people to see, but also for that natural environment that they're such an important part of. There's over 1,500 different types of plants here in New River Gorge National Park and Preserve. So an amazing spot to each of us take that step of practicing outdoor ethics and kind of trying to leave things as they are.
Yeah, we want to take photos or even sketches, but leave everything else in place, which I think is really important. I think some of our most important things here too are our park rangers. You guys are such good stewards of the earth. In fact, everyone that works in our public lands are so important. We are there also to be caretakers of this place. So they have a very important job, but they can't do it all. They work very, very hard, and they need us to help. So kids, let's think about this for just a moment, this Leave No Trace. When you're outside at ball games and you've got your plastics or your paper, that you're gonna get rid of that. You're gonna take it back with you. Everything that you have, you're gonna take it back. So thanks for being so passionate about Leave No Trace. In fact, I think it's had a really powerful impact even on our educators that have come here, that are remembering what they've learned and then taking that back into the classroom. You can actually search online, teachers, for the Leave No Trace principles and put those up in your classroom. I think it's just a great reminder for us to be good stewards. I want to talk again about the salamanders for just a moment, because they are pretty special, and as your niece found yesterday and named her Sally. So I'm going to pull this net out just for a moment and talk about how we use our nets to find salamanders, but I also am feeling a little groove come over me right now, and I feel like we have to do what we're going to call the Sally slide. Okay, so Sally is short for salamander. So I'm having to hold this microphone today, kids, which is kind of, I should be okay. I'm going to take it down for a moment. So what I'd like for us to do is we are going to do the Sally salamander slide. So I need everybody with permission from your teachers to stand up in your classroom. All right, we've got to make sure we're staying on our little spots here. And we're going to do the slide. And as Ranger Lori shared earlier, it's kind of a very, hey there, how are you? I'm new in town. And we're just going to kind of roll our shoulders back a little bit. And then a salamander kind of inches into itself and then slides out again. So it kind of, so we're going to kind of, woo, yeah, hi there. A little wink on the side. Want to meet me over at the rock and we'll talk about leave no trace.
Goodness.
So here we go. Let's get a little bigger, a little better, and we're sliding. Just put in your favorite music here. And then we're going to do a little turn around. Look at the new river. And then we're going to realize that we're being touched by humans and we're going to just scoot really quickly. So I hope you enjoyed our silly salamander slide here. Glide and slide. That'll be one for the books now. I'm sure that's going to be really interesting. I want to talk a little bit also about another piece of this park that is so important. So I'm going to take you to a slide for just a moment. And I want you to see, because we can't see this in our overhead shot, but what we're seeing right now, I think, is the New River Gorge Bridge.
Beautiful.
It is absolutely fascinating. Now, it's a few miles from here.
A little bit, yeah.
In fact, New River Gorge National Park and Preserve is about 53 miles long is what I found, which is a very long park.
It is.
But it hugs this river, this really important river that you talked about earlier. So let's take a look again at this river behind us. And then I want to talk about this bridge and why it was built and how we're going to get our kids involved. So let's talk about this. Who wants to share the reason why this New River Gorge Bridge was built?
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take
Ranger
that.
Jody for sure.
So we are in the Appalachian Mountains. They go from Maine to Georgia. And there's different sections of the mountains. We're in an area called the Appalachian Plateau. When you look across the scene behind us, you'll see kind of how level it looks. But we're really in the mountains, and this river cuts right across that mountain chain. Now, for many years, because of the mountainous terrain here, it was challenging for people to get from place to place to place. And so some of the early roads, they were more remote. The train served for a long time. That was kind of the main road. People would ride the train. But when they started building roads into this area, it took some time. And one of those, they started with some of the interstates. Like here in West Virginia, Interstate 77 goes from south to north in the state. But there were two interstates that they wanted to connect to maybe cut some of that travel time through the mountains. And so that's when they started working on what they call the Corridor L Highway Project. It was through the state of West Virginia. And that's where they wanted to connect Interstate 77 to Interstate 79. That takes you up to Pittsburgh. And so this was kind of a little shortcut. And the first piece of that was the New River Gorge Bridge that they finished building in 1977. Now the bridge structure itself, that's now the third highest bridge in the United States. You can see in the pictures, it's one single arch. And when it was built, it was the world's longest single arch steel span. It's now the fifth longest single arch steel pit in the world. Yeah, people love to set new records, and they did that here at New River too. But when you were driving through the New River Gorge before that bridge was here, right in that area, which is now the northern tip of the National Park Service site, it took about 45 minutes to drive down that original road that was built in the late 1800s and drive across the little bridge at the bottom and cross up the other side. It now takes 45 seconds to drive across that 4-lane highway bridge. And so it really that bridge made a huge, huge impact on travel around this area.
It solved a problem.
It did,
Right? It helped
yeah.
people get back and forth to work and maybe for
Right.
even emergencies.
Yes.
Now we've actually driven under that bridge.
You can still use the old road. Now the road's changed. It's mostly one-way traffic now. So that makes it a little safer because it's a really teeny, windy, little teeny thing.
Right.
Yeah. But the bridge was the first piece of this bigger highway project that took almost 40 years to complete. And now you can easily get from some of the bigger highways in this part of the state to another section of the state with this shortcut that started with the construction of the New River Gorge Bridge.
And it started with a problem, something that needed to be solved. So we're going to now give you an engineering design challenge. So inspired by the New River Bridge, we want to design a bridge or structure that reflects the ingenuity of this landmark, but also serves a purpose in your own community. So I want you to think about how your design could serve or solve a local transportation or environmental need, like maybe a new pedestrian bridge, a wildlife crossing, or any other sustainable structure. So we're actually going to bring to the screen right now 2 of our educators who have come in from North Carolina. We have Miss Tolbert and we have Mr. Kraus. So if you can tell us real quickly where you're from and what you teach. And then I've given you the challenge today of actually building this bridge with different materials. So tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Miss Talbert. I am from Greensboro, North Carolina. I teach for Guilford County Schools. I'm a 5th grade reading and social studies teacher, and love working with after-school kids with our National Parks Club.
And what are you going to use for your design?
So I have used building blocks. So I have used building blocks that I have in the recreational part of my classroom and made some bridge designs here. I think it's kind of fun and neat just to kind of play around with the different sizes and shapes of the building blocks, you know, kind of see how they work with the stability, the height and the width that you can get your bridges to go. Also can use like classroom popsicle sticks and straws and different materials in the craft center. Have kids bring in, you know, the milk cartons from the lunchroom, any type of little recyclable materials that they can just, you know, have a knack at seeing how they can build the designs in the classroom to hold or be the highest or the widest that you can.
Yeah, so we can connect this to stories, to literature, to social studies, to math when you're measuring this.
Very much so.
So we also have...
My name's Rodney Kraus, and I teach 5th grade in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I was given the task to go and find natural items. So who can't go outside and find things that are dead, down, and on the ground? As part of the Leave No Trace, we don't want to hurt anything out there, even our plants. So a short walk right here on the trail brought lots of rocks and twigs and bark and even some greenery. So, you know, recently in North Carolina, we found out how important interstates are and bridges and cutting time in half for travel, because without those, it definitely increased delivery time and had a huge economic impact as well. Another thing that they're doing is natural bridges for wildlife crossings. So you can incorporate any of those ideas into that. Of course, talking about the foundation, like Ms. Talbert mentioned, maybe building it with some flat rocks you find, covering it with some natural bark that's already on the ground. After a hard storm, you might even have some greenery to offer some disguising.
Yeah, so camouflage would be important, and you want your bridge or whatever you build to be reflective of the community you're in. You don't want something painted red, green, and purple polka dots in a place where you're trying to be very calm and use nature. So you guys have actually been with us with Expeditions in Education for 5 years now. And what is the most important thing that you can tell students about?
Their screen is frozen.
We can jump on here. Mrs. Zimmerman, what is something maybe you have learned from being in nature, or you have learned from the national parks in the 5 years you have partnered with Expeditions in Education?
Oh my goodness, there's so much. I will say this, both Miss Bell and I were able to be at New River Gorge, and we had a great time there with Ranger Lori and Ranger Jody. And I learned so much about respecting nature. And I'm looking at all of the kids that are on our broadcast today and looking at their teachers. And everywhere you go outside really is nature. It doesn't have to be in a national park. Once you go outside your door, you're really in nature. And it's so great to learn there, but also take the time to respect what's going on in nature. And I love, Miss Bell, I know you put it in the chat earlier, asking the teachers to look for the Leave No Trace program. And it is really neat to take the time to leave no trace. That means we don't leave our trash. But that also means we don't, like Mr. Krause, when he was gathering up all of his twigs and things, he was not picking beautiful flowers and pulling fresh leaves off trees or breaking branches off trees. He was picking things up that were already maybe discarded.
Yep, dead, down, and on the ground. I like that. That's something that when we are out and we're doing our nature journaling or we're building a design challenge, I like to look for things that are dead, down, and on the ground
On the ground. That's a great
rather
plan.
rather than things that are, alive and still beautiful. We just got a message. They're working on getting back up live, so we appreciate your
Wonderful.
patience.
So I'm
Technology is on.
wondering, so we've got several classes that are on. Do we have any classes that you've already looked at the designs? Let's see, Carlisle, you're going to need to mute. Thank you. I wonder if we have any classes that already have some ideas for their bridge design. That if there's someone they would like to share, if you can drop in the chat what you are thinking, maybe we can let you share your ideas with us. Maybe Miss Middleton, hold on, because it looks like we have a picture again. Hello, Dr. Drizzle. Welcome back.
We are back. So sorry about that, but New River Gorge Park Rangers want to say that they always want to be first. So this is the first time we've ever lost power, and we're going to keep moving kind of quickly to make sure we don't do it again. But again, what is your advice to our students about nature?
Just let nature teach you. Look at the adaptability you can see in nature. Trees growing out of cliff sides, rivers winding their ways through the mountains, making their own paths.
I would say get out and build a relationship with it, because once you have the relationship with the nature that surrounds you, then you care about it and you're more driven to protect it. And that's what we all need to do.
I love that. So we want to make sure that you build your design. Let's take a look at the New River Bridge one more time for inspiration. Teachers, feel free to pull some of these things offline and let your kids share. We want you to share those with us. We want you to tag us at Expeditions in Education. We also want you to do Crossing America, hashtag Crossing America. And because Jody and Lori are so excited. In fact, when the power went out on our side, they started building with the materials that our educators had up here. So let's come back in. We are here back together again. Thanks for being so patient, and thanks to our moderators. Do we have any questions, Miss Bell or Miss Zimmerman? Because you were having some great conversations without us.
We have a lot of questions. So first of all, apparently there's someone named Caden, and he has an ant standing beside of you.
He does. He does. I love that.
Thank you.
So we lots of questions. How many miles of trails are in your park?
About 100 miles of trail in the park. Yeah, this is a long, thin corridor, so there's not too many loops. A lot of go out and come back, but anything from down low next to the river to up high in the cliff line.
Yeah, right now we have really beautiful, we have the Grandview Rim Trail. Takes you along the gorge. We're at the highest point within the park, about 1,400 feet above the New River, and it just offers spectacular views.
As we can see,
yeah,
behind
absolutely.
us
Don't call this Grandview for nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had several questions about, for the Rangers, do you like your job? How did you get your job? If you had to work somewhere else, where would you want to work?
All right, well, let's start with Ranger Jody. Real quickly, how did you get this position? And I think you've been here for quite a while.
Yeah, I'm still pinching myself after a very, very long time with the National Park Service. I did go to college. I studied recreation and wildlife. I specialized in interpretation, which is what Lori and I do. We're kind of like teachers in a park setting. And so we lead guided hikes. I also work at a visitor center. When you get a park map or publications or go to an exhibit hall or something, that's the kind of stuff that we do too. Programs in the park, outside the park, in schools. So it's all about helping people understand more about the resources and how they can explore them on their own. But we think it's most fun when we get to explore with us. I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that. Yeah. So
you love it, right?
Yeah. So I mean, like we're spring. We're talking about that all coming up soon. Boy, we've got a big spring event coming up, and I can't wait to go out and talk, help people learn about birds and flowers in the park with us out in the field. It's really fun.
All right.
What's your journey been?
Well, I started when I was 14 as a volunteer. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, near Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and by proxy, my parents became volunteers also because they were driving me. And a ranger told me that she thought I'd be good at this, and I never considered it. Now it's been my whole adult life has been being a park ranger and being outside and getting to share that with kids. So I only like it a little bit. I think I get the best views in the world, and I have the best job in the world sharing that with other people.
In the Great Smokies.
I did. I started in Great Smokies as a very young volunteer intern. And this is actually my 6th national park. So Jody has been here for a long time and has our institutional knowledge. And I've been able to just scratch the surface of a lot of other places, having been at 5 other places from here.
So of course, New River's your favorite.
Oh, of course.
That's where you're here
Absolutely. Help me meet you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
People are so surprised. There's National Park Service sites all over the country, running 433 right now. History sites, nature places, places to explore. So there's so many opportunities, whether we're going out and playing in them as visitors, or for those of us lucky enough to work in National Park Service sites. There's a lot of cool stuff to see.
There is. Do we have another question, Ms. Zimmerman?
Yes, well, Noel would like to know how many national parks Dr. Drizzle has visited.
Yeah, so great question. When we started doing this about 5 years ago, there were only 420 national park sites. Now there's 433 with more in the making. I love that our country values national parks and public lands so much and wants to protect and preserve them. So my husband and I have filmed at 183 national park sites, but we feel like that we have probably visited closer to 225 of those. You know, sometimes you'll see people say that they visited all the national parks, all 63 of them. And while that is technically correct, the National Park Service has many names for the public lands that they protect. There are national parks, which is one of which the New River Gorge National Park and Preserve. But as Ranger Jody says, we have rivers and landmarks and military sites and battlefields and historical parks and recreation areas and so many places that belong to you. Places that you can go and visit and leave no trace. So a lot of places, and we're excited to go to other ones, and we're going to share a few of those with you in just a few moments. So thanks for that question, Nolan.
So going back to earlier in the broadcast when we talked about the coal mine, several about those. Why would they risk their life to get coal? How did they get down into the coal mine? Is coal mining dangerous for the environment in the way it's produced, and how?
Well, I'm going to let Ranger Jody answer a few of those, but we're also going to encourage you to do some research because coal mining happened in different places. And Miss Bell, if you can drop in the chat window the name Homer Hickman, because Homer Hickman is pretty synonymous with West Virginia, growing up in West Virginia, being part of a coal mining family, and then transferring to NASA. So worked in the coal mines with his father and then became a NASA astronaut. But tell us about the coal mining here. Is it dangerous? How did they get down through those shafts? and a little bit more.
So the gorge is anywhere between 900 and 1,500 feet deep, depending on where you are. And the layer of coal, the seam, is about halfway up. Again, this is horizontal shaft mining. They went straight in the side of the mountain. Yeah. Now, there's other types of coal mining done in other parts of the country and the world. But here, they would go straight in from the side. You can even see that on some of the trails. Like you hike out to the old Kmore coal mine, and you can see the sandstone above and the layer of coal and the sandstone below. But they would start digging. They would start in the side and go straight in at that coal layer and dig that coal out. Now, this was a major industrial process. Back in the times when the gorge was booming here, it was all hand manual labor. So a coal miner would be underground. Remember, this is low coal. They're going to be way down. And they would use tools like long drills and explosives to drop the coal. Then they would use shovels to get that into the coal cars and send it out of the mines. So it was really a lot of hard manual labor here. And yes, was it dangerous? It sure was. Dangers of roof collapse, explosions in the mine, gases in the mine. When you would see these mines in operation back in the day, 100 years ago, there would be a main entrance that the coal miners would go in, but there would also be a side entrance where there would be like a large fan unit to make sure they could push that fresh air to where the miners were working underground. And so there was definitely a lot of challenges, and it's still, even though it's much more mechanized now in our modern times, and you can look some of this information up. Yeah, it is still a challenge, but it's much more mechanized now. But back then, it was all hand work that they were doing here in the New River Gorge.
I think the cool thing that the park works on, specifically our resource management group, is they work with a lot of partners and they work to rehabilitate that land. So while that was a big part of our story here at New River Gorge, it's still part of our story. And there was a human impact, but we still are working to have a positive human impact with that. We go through and we plant trees and work on, again, going back to that salamander, it's going to help the salamander in that environment. We do find, when I mentioned vernal pools, we do find that there are some that are man-made. So whether it's the result of a road, that we have the structure. So it's just that seasonal pool of water, but we also have naturally occurring vernal pools around. So with that, we are still protecting that. So it did have that human impact, like Ranger Jody was saying, but that we're still making a positive impact on our environment. Did we have any other questions coming in that you wanted to touch on?
Absolutely. How many visitors does your park have each year?
We have over 2 million visitors a year.
A lot.
The park. Yeah. The park's about 70,000 acres, kind of a long, thin corridor. And so there's lots of different places to explore here. This was originally called New River Gorge National River, and we got a technical name change through Congress in the past 4 years, and that definitely caught a lot more interest by a lot of people who like to visit parks that have the national park title. And so we've definitely seen an increase of the number of people.
And they like to visit that bridge. So I understand you're working on an engineering challenge.
Yeah.
And so they do. It used to be that when visitors would come when we were in National River, they'd come try to see that bridge. And now they're exploring. Grandview is further south. It's really awesome. There's all these great, you asked about trails, all these great places that you can visit beyond the bridge. The bridge is spectacular. It is an engineering marvel for sure. But there's a lot of other places that we get to explore.
Like Grandview here.
Oh, it's just behind us.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Thanks. I had to step off for just a minute. I think I swallowed a salamander.
Oh no.
I got the little slippy slide thing going again inside of me. Do we have any more questions, Miss Zimmerman?
What about a lot of questions about animals, like the black bear population? What does that look like in the park as in the rest of West Virginia? And maybe even some endangered species that you have in the park.
You want to take bears and I can take endangered species?
It doesn't
about
matter.
bears.
Yeah, we definitely do have black bear living here in the gorge, but they are not commonly seen. Yeah. So there are places in West Virginia that the populations are a little larger. Like to the east of us is Monongahela National Forest, run by the U.S. Forest Service. They do have a black bear sanctuary in the southern part of the forest. You know, so that is one of our largest mammals, definitely, that we see here in the park. But there's every size of them, including some small species that are endangered species.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite, because it looks like a rainbow, is our candy darter species we find in the river, and it is endangered. It's a fish. Candy darter is a fish. Ranger Jody's reminding me. We also have, what else do we have that's endangered?
We've got several species of bats that are endangered here, including the Virginia big-eared bat.
And that, you know, with conservation and how we impact our environment, it's important. I know we have white nose syndrome going on all over the country. And one of the best ways to protect that, because bats will transmit that themselves, but if ever an area is closed and it says for bat conservation, we ask that you respect that. But here at Grandview specifically, we have another citizen science project, of course. People come out and they count how many bats come out of our bat houses. And so it's an early evening summer activity, but also another way that when you're visiting a national park, ask your rangers. They might have a citizen science project that you can be a part of, just like our bat counting here at Grandview.
I love that. And we talked about the white nose syndrome, and we've seen that at Mammoth Cave and lava beds and other places. But again, it's one thing that we can help reduce the impact. You know, we talk about the impact that human activity has on our national parks. We can reduce that. The human impact can be good. Like there can be these people that are joining us here that are watching live, they're enjoying this. Their impact here is good. But with the white nose syndrome, we can also talk about if you've ever been in another cave before, you clean your shoes before you go into another cave so that we're not the transmitters of that.
That's good, leave no trace.
Good, leave no trace.
Yeah.
Boy, Ranger Jody wants you to know that is leave no trace. You're going to be checking behind you. Miss Zimmerman, let's go with one more question.
Oh, great. We have really a good question. The Rangers mentioned that there was recently a change of name from National River and now to the National Park and Preserve. So we have a question. Tell us what preserve really means in that name.
In the broader sense of this, so as a national park and preserve, there are different sections of this park. That some parts, like here at Grandview, this is a national park section. Sandstone Falls, historic Thurmond. You know, there's several different places that are the national park sections. And then there's a majority of the park that are national preserve areas. Basically, one of the biggest things is the national park sections. There are no hunting. Those are no hunting zones. Compared to the national preserve, you can hunt in those areas if you're on public land and are following West Virginia game regulations. Now, honestly, a lot of this is very similar to when we had our original designation, New River Gorge National River. A lot of these same places were safety zones, no hunting areas, what are now the national park sections.
Yeah.
So I like to think of this with our name change is the first part, so New River Gorge, that's our first name. It tells you where you are. Yellowstone, that's the first name. The after part, the national park, the national river, the national lakeshore, that's their last name. That tells you what they're protecting. So national parks are, set aside through an act of Congress, and so that was a little bit of a change. But the coolest part, anytime you see the arrowhead, I always got to throw this in, Daisha. You know that we protect all of these places. So if you see the arrowhead, whether it is a national park, a national lakeshore, a national battlefield, they're all protected and preserved for all of our people in this country.
I love that. And I think that's a great way to wrap this live stream up, is that these beautiful people in the green and gray are here to protect, but they need our help to do that. We have visitors here now that are watching. They're making sure they're picking up their trash. They're respecting each other. They're being good humans. They're taking care of this area. we need to do the same. I know that Miss Bell's going to drop in a link to the chat window right now that's going to give you an opportunity to thank a park ranger. We're doing a national campaign where we can send thank you notes to these people who are taking care of our places, and we're going to join with you in that. Our next live stream is we be coming across the country to the Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. We're going to be at about 10,000 feet elevation. We're at about 1,400, I think, right now. So about 10,000 feet elevation, and we're going to be working with park rangers there to learn more about the ecosystems. But again, we are all one big family in this. We are trying to save everything that we can. So on behalf of Expeditions in Education, the National Park Foundation, these amazing rangers, Lori and Jody, I don't know why I keep calling her Lori and Lori, our educators, Miss Tolbert and Mr. Krause, thank you so much for joining us for a Crossing America live stream season 4. 2 more. Oh, big news. I almost forgot. We are actually adding 1 more live stream to this school year's event, and Glacier National Park. So on May the 9th, you can join us at Glacier National Park, where there are 37 named glaciers left there, and we're hoping to see some bear and maybe some moose, but we will be joining you from Glacier in May and Rocky Mountain in April. So again, have a great day, everyone. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Leave no trace.
Thank you.